So we all have busy lives. You have your job, you have your house, you have your family, and you have other things on top of that. Like for me, it's photography, taking pictures, editing pictures, sharing things online, and making videos like this. So how do you fit it all in? Well, for me, it's all about process and workflow. And in this video, I'm going to share with you my step-by-step procedures for managing my workflow, from taking pictures to editing them and everything in between. So stick around. The whole process of photography, from the initial planning stages all the way to the final product, involves a lot of different tasks. And I find that having a process in place for that helps me keep organized and actually helps my creativity overall. The process that I have is basically dictated by my own shooting style, by the kind of camera that I use, by the kind of editing software that I use, and vice versa. Everything kind of goes hand in hand. And it's very personal to me and reflects really my shooting style. So my process and procedure might not really be right for you, but there may be some things that I do along the way that will actually help you in your photography also. But it all starts with the camera, so let's dive into there and take a look at what I'm doing while I'm shooting.
So this is the back of the Canon 5D Mark IV. First thing is, this camera has 2 memory card slots. So I'm always using both memory cards. I'm always shooting to both cards simultaneously, raw files. This way I have a backup right in the camera of every image that I take. So when I'm shooting either at home, I'm out in the field somewhere, I'm always shooting to both of those cards, and I'm always leaving the images on those cards as we go along. This way I always have the backup. I don't really worry about deleting things or going through images during the day or even at the end of the day. I'll wait till the end. I'll wait till the end of the whole trip to go through everything at once. This particular trip was from a photo trip that Bill and I took to Disney. You can see there's 3,600 images on here just from this one trip. So going through those is a bit of a task, but I'll wait till the end. I'll wait till everything is done before I go through them at all. So then there's, when I get back at the end of the trip, there's a couple of different schools of thought on this. One of them is to just load everything into the computer and start deleting them there. But I like to actually review and delete all of my images in the camera before I even put them into the computer. And that's really because it's so easy to review the images and delete them on this camera. And I'll show you how I do that. Now, the very first thing I do when I get back to either the hotel room or I get back home at the end of a trip is I'll take out that second memory card and I will make a backup of that onto the hard drive. This way I have a backup of a backup. And I can keep that on the hard drive for as long as I want. I can keep it, I usually keep it until I'm done editing all the photos from that trip. But I can really keep that on there as long as I want. This way I always have a backup for whatever reason. In case I delete something, in case something happens to a file, I always have everything backed up in 2 places. And then from there, I'll actually carry my camera around with me for a day or so, and I'll go through all of the images that I have on here and delete the duplicates, delete the ones that just didn't come out, whether they weren't exposed correctly, whether they didn't focus properly, or they're a little bit blurry because the shutter speed was too slow. I'll delete all of those off the camera before even loading them into the computer. So I'll pop a nice light lens on here, like the 40mm pancake lens, so this way I don't have to carry anything bulky around. And usually within about 24 hours of getting back from a trip, I've gone through everything, and I'll just sit and take 10-15 minutes here and there and go through these images. So you can see on this camera how easy it is to actually go through. This command dial on the back allows me to scroll through images very quickly. And then as far as reviewing images, if I want to zoom in, it's a one-touch zoom. And there's a little joystick controller. Okay, so this one was a little bit out of focus. The next one isn't. Go back to the one that's out of focus, delete it, it's gone. You can see how easy that is to review and delete images. Now these 1, 2, 3 shots are basically all in focus. I can zoom back out. I've got 1, 2, 3 of the exact same images. I'm going to delete 2 of them. Now I just have that one left. I know it's good, and I'll move along. I can really quickly go through images. I'll show you how quickly I can delete images on here. I just deleted 5 images in less than 5 seconds. So it's very easy to do on here. And like I said, within about a day or so, I can get these 3,600 images down to about probably 600 or 700 images that I will then load onto the computer. So let's head into the computer now, and I'll show you what I do there to narrow these images down a little bit further before I start the editing process. Okay, so now I've loaded all my images into the computer and imported them into Lightroom. So the first thing I'm going to do is just run through all of these pictures again and see what else I can get rid of. Sometimes I really can't tell which photo I like better in the camera, so I'll keep both of them. Sometimes I'll scroll through these after I put them in Lightroom and say, what was I thinking? That's a terrible shot. I'll just delete it. So I'll sweep through all these photos again and just eliminate a bunch of them right off the spot that I don't even want to look at. So after doing that, which I've done here already, I basically gotten my image set down to 528 shots from this trip that I still need to edit. So basically what I'll do at this point is, since I really don't like sitting in front of the computer all day, but I do enjoy editing these, bringing them to life, is I will actually budget my editing time based on sometimes a hard deadline, sometimes an arbitrary deadline. But basically I'll give myself a number of photos that I need to edit per day and stick to that number. So for example, at this point I have 528 photos to edit. It's early November now, and I want to have these done by the end of the year. So I have about 60 days to edit these. 528 divided by 60 is 8.8. So I need to edit 9 photos per day between now and the end of the year. Now basically that's a number that I need to stick to. So if I have a really crazy busy day, really overscheduled, I got to make sure maybe I wake up early, maybe I stay up late. I have to get through those 9 images that day. Maybe I not necessarily edit, but also edit and or delete images. So I've got to get 9 off my plate that day. On the flip side of that, I can have a really lazy day where I have nothing going on, but I'm going to also try to limit myself to just those 9 images. This way I don't have a marathon editing session where I'm sitting here for hours and I end up editing, 100 to 200 shots in one day, and then I get sick of it. So I want to try to limit the amount of time I'm sitting here at the computer editing. So I'll stick to that number. I'll stick to that 9 per day. And then once I'm done, I have free time to do whatever else I want to do. That's not to say I won't sometimes spend a day, hours in a day, editing a ton of shots. Sometimes I'll have a rainy Sunday with nothing else going on, and I'll get through 100 or 200 shots in a day and get that number down in one shot. And then what I'll maybe even do is recalculate. Maybe I'll have 30 days left till my deadline, and I only have 200 shots left, and I'll recalculate and say, okay, now I only have to edit 7 per day, and then stick to that number also. So that basically just keeps me from having to sit in front of the computer all day and edit these things, and kind of keeps me on a budget, and makes it a little bit easier, and it gives me a little more free time to shoot other things. So then when I'm editing, basically what I'm going to be doing, what I'm going to be looking for is editing shots in groups. So for example, I have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots of the Dapper Dans. I'm going to make sure I edit these all in one sitting because they're all similar lighting, similar composition. Everything about them is basically very similar, other than exactly what the performers are doing, their facial expressions, their poses. So I'll edit these all in one session, just to make it a little bit easier to bring it all together. So, for example, I had these shots that I posted just the other day of Morocco at night. Very similar coloring, very similar lighting. So I'll edit these shots, 1, 2, I think I have 3 of them. I edit these all at one shot. Just makes it more efficient, because it's just easier when you're working with the same color palette and lighting situation, just to knock it all out in one sitting. So I've got these 5 shots of Spaceship Earth at night. Each one's different, but they're similar again in composition and coloring and lighting. So I'll edit these all in one shot. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning, as far as knowing what I need to do, the end result, the editing that I need to do at the very end, and how I'm going to do it. That influences how I'm shooting in the field. These shots of these dancers, I probably had about 50 or so that I took right on the scene. And it's all about, they're in motion, they're dancing around. You want to make sure that you get just that right expression, just the right pose. So I know that I can shoot away in a situation like that. And then when I get them back into the computer later on, I can really narrow it down quickly, get to the few shots that I like, and just make sure I'm only editing the couple of shots that I really like in the end, and hopefully get something nice. So again, it's editing in bunches, editing shots that are similar at the same time, just really makes things much easier and much more efficient. And then each day when I'm done editing, I'll export all of my images I've edited that day into JPEGs, and I'll have them in a folder ready to share online.
So that's a little look into my process and how I do things. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really love talking about this stuff. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. If you have any other insights, any things that you do in your process that you want to share with me, I love to hear what you guys do. It's really great to share that kind of information. So definitely put stuff in the comments below. But if you do like this video, give it a thumbs up, and definitely subscribe to the channel and click on that little notification bell. This way you'll be notified every time we post a new video. So thanks for following along here, and I'll see you in the next video.